New York, April 12, 1938. 6,000 people crowd the platforms of a railway station, not for a film star, not for a champion. They have come to watch a man board a train to prison. He walks through them in a perfectly cut overcoat, chin level, gaze straight ahead, handcuffed between a forger and a robber. He does not hide his face. Aristocrats don't. His name is Richard Whitney. 9 years earlier, on the worst day in Wall Street history, this man performed the most famous act of financial theater America had ever seen. He strode across the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and loudly bid far above the market for U.S. steel on behalf of the assembled might of the banks. The panic paused. The photographs made him immortal, the man who stood against the flood. Within months, he was president of the exchange itself. Hold both pictures at once, the hero of Black Thursday and the prisoner on the platform, and ask the question this series orbits. What does it take for a man born holding every key to end up stealing from widows, a yacht club, and the dead? Richard Whitney is not a climber like Ponzi, nor an outsider like Hatry. He is born in 1888 at the Summit, old Boston family, Groton, Harvard, a New York bond house of his own by his 20s, and decisively a brother. George Whitney is a senior partner at J.P. Morgan & Company, the holiest firm in American finance. Richard becomes the Morgan broker, the exchange member who executes trades for the House of Morgan. That one relationship makes his firm and builds the armor that will matter so much later. To question Richard Whitney is, faintly, to question Morgan itself. Nobody questions Morgan. October 24, 1929, Black Thursday. As the market disintegrates, the great bankers pool a rescue fund, and Whitney is the man they send to the floor. 205 for steel, a bid struck theatrically above the market. For a day, the tide turns. The legend is born, and the presidency of the exchange follows. As president, he becomes Wall Street's warrior aristocrat, battling the New Deal, lecturing Congress that the exchange is, his phrase, a perfect institution, needing no federal oversight. A perfect institution. Remember it. Its president at that very moment is broke. Here is what the public cannot see. Richard Whitney is a mediocre investor with an aristocrat's burn rate. His money bleeds into ventures of almost comic quality, Florida fertilizer, mineral colloids, and above all a company called Distilled Liquors, betting that post-Prohibition America thirsts for New Jersey applejack. America does not. To prop up the sinking positions, he borrows. First from banks, then over and over, in staggering amounts, from his brother George and the Morgan partners, millions across the 30s, temporary every time. The brother keeps paying because the alternative, a Whitney failing in public, is unthinkable. And when family money isn't enough, the president of the New York Stock Exchange begins taking what is not his, with the special access of a man nobody would ever audit, securities belonging to the New York Yacht Club. He is its treasurer. Bonds from his father-in-law's estate. He is its trustee. And finally, monstrously, the gratuity fund of the exchange itself, the death benefit fund for the widows and orphans of deceased members. He pledges its securities as collateral for his personal loans. The hero of Black Thursday is financing Applejack with the Widows Fund. No forged certificates, no offshore webs. Just the oldest privilege there is, the man above suspicion, alone with the vault. The recession of 1937 tightens every screw. The Applejack Company sinks, the loans stack. And in the exchange's own back office, a routine audit finds that the gratuity fund's securities are not where the records say they are. The unraveling takes months of quiet horror. His peers, his club brothers, discover the truth in stages. George Whitney repays the fund out of his own pocket, and for a few weeks it nearly stays quiet. The club protecting the club, one last time. But the sums are too big, and the SEC, the agency Whitney swore was unnecessary, is watching now. In March 1938, the district attorney announces the charge. Richard Whitney. Grand larceny. The shock lands differently than any swindler's arrest before it. Ponzi was an outsider, Insel a parvenu. Whitney was the establishment, Groton, Harvard, Morgan, the presidency. When he pleads guilty, no trial, no excuses, a gentleman to the last, old Wall Street's claim to police itself dies in the courtroom with him. The regulators inherit the field almost without a fight. President Roosevelt told the news, reportedly managed only 3 words. Not Dick Whitney. Sing Sing. 5 to 10 years. The crowds watch the overcoat vanish into the train, and America gets its strangest prisoner since Ponzi. He is, by all accounts, a model inmate. Courteous to guards, teaching other prisoners to read, playing first base on the prison team with patrician calm. Men who despise bankers as a species treat him with puzzled respect. He serves 3 years and 4 months. Outside the walls, his crime keeps working. The scandal detonates under the exchange itself. The perfect institution that had sworn it needed no oversight is suddenly the institution whose own president was robbing the till. Within months, the old guard is swept from power, the rulebook is rewritten, and the federal regulators the members had held at the door for a decade walk straight through the front entrance. And it changes something subtler too. Before Whitney, an audit was an insult, a thing you did to clerks, not to gentlemen. After Whitney, no title, no surname, no perfect overcoat would ever again be accepted as collateral. That is his real monument, a market that finally learned to count what its finest men were holding, and then nothing. That's what makes the ending remarkable. No comeback, no memoir, no lecture circuit. Barred from finance for life, he manages a dairy farm, then a small fiber company, and lives 3 more decades in deliberate obscurity, dying in 1974. His brother quietly made good every dollar to every victim, the widow's fund included, the aristocracy settling its own ledger on the way out the door. Whitney stole less money than almost anyone in this series. So why does his story matter most to some historians? Because trust is a pyramid too. At its base, 40,000 immigrants queue for Ponzi. But at its very top, above audits, above questions, stood a man in a perfect overcoat, and the view from up there turned out to be the best cover a thief ever had. The playbook. What Richard Whitney adds to the manual. Rule 1. The man above suspicion is the man most worth suspecting. Audits exist precisely for the people it feels rude to audit. Rule 2. Temporary borrowing against other people's assets is theft on an installment plan. Rule 3. Institutions don't fail loudly. They fail quietly first, in back offices, among friends deciding whether to tell. The paper empire ledger adds a small, heavy entry. Barely $1 million from the funds he raided, every cent repaid by his brother, and stands at roughly $351 million stolen. Some entries weigh more than their number, because money was never paper. It's belief, wearing paper's clothes. Next time on Paper Empire, while the market burned in 1929, the head of one of America's greatest banks made millions by secretly betting against his own bank with his own bank's money. And here is the part that will keep you up at night. It was perfectly legal. The trade that forced Congress to invent a new crime. Next. Subscribe.